welcome to another episode of the Environment and Ecology PT series. Now, I hope you must be liking our series, and this is one of the episodes in which you are going to get a lot of information with respect to current affairs of environment and ecology. Let's begin with the first one is IPCC 6th Assessment Report, which is the flagship report of IPCC, the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. It published the third part of its 6th assessment reports. It was published in different parts, and that the third part we are going to talk about here. Theme is Climate Change 2022. What is the reason? We have to mitigate the climate change. Remember like this, climate change 2022, mitigating it, reducing it. Second part of the report was related to Climate Change 2022, impacts, adaptation and vulnerability. And the first part was Climate Change 2021, the physical science basis. So the physical science basis, then we have to know about the impacts, adaptation and vulnerability, and then mitigation. Remember like this if it is asked in your examination to match. Okay, then let's talk about the third report, the important observations. Limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius requires global greenhouse gas emission. They need to peak. Peak means to reach a threshold before 2025, so that it peaks and then we try to make it to come down. Okay, and at the latest, that means what we have learned over here. If it is asked in your prelims examination, what is the PK that is needed according to the IPCC third report? The latest one is 2025. Okay, and it needs to be reduced by 43%, and the year is 2030. So these facts are important. Okay, and it identifies India as one of the vulnerable hotspots. India is a vulnerable hotspot according to this report. Several regions and important cities, they are facing high risk of climate disasters, which includes flooding, drought, heat waves. Okay, climate change is increasing vector-borne diseases and heat wave diseases, heat-borne diseases, water-borne diseases. So vector-borne means diseases like we see after a flood in different respective areas. Whenever floods increase, malaria, dengue, these kind of diseases start to increase. So whenever these kind of things are going to happen, vector-borne disease is going to be rising at a greater risk. Multiple disasters which is induced by climate change likely to emerge in different parts of the world, and death related to what diseases? Circulatory, respiratory, diabetic and infectious disease. Infant mortality, these are increasing with the rise in temperature. So this is also a preliminary fact. Remember that very well. What kind of death increases? What types of deaths are going to increase? If it is asked in the preliminary examination, only circulatory and respiratory, no. Other ones are also included. Infectious, mortality. So let's talk about IPCC, an international body for assessing the science related to climate change it is. And it was established only in the year 1988 by the collaboration of the World Meteorological Organization and UNEP, United Nations Environment Program. If it is asked in your prelims examination, it was established by UNEP and UNCD. No, it was by WMO and UNEP. Okay, and if we talk more about it, it provides policymakers with regular assessment of the scientific basis of climate change. It wants to know why the climate change is happening, and that is with the help of analysis from the scientific perspective. First assessment report came out only in the year 1990, and then after that 4 subsequent reports came into being. Starting from after 1990, we have 1995, 2001, 2007 and then 2015, and after that we have the current report. Okay, moving on. If we talk about the next topic, that is permafrost thawing. Thawing means to break away, okay, to melt. The latest IPCC report also warns that there is increasing global warming, and because of which there will be reduction in Arctic permafrost, that is permanently iced. The water resources of Arctic that are permanently iced are known as permafrost, and these are thawing or melting down, which will wreak havoc for the climate change. Dr. Christopher R. Byrne, President of the International Permafrost Association. Okay, do know about International Permafrost Association, and the president is Dr. Christopher R. Byrne. Remember that. Explains the consequences. What are the consequences? First, let's know about permafrost. It is ground that remains at or below 0 degrees Celsius for at least 2 consecutive years. So, it is the ground that remains below 0 degrees Celsius for how many? Minimum 2 consecutive years. Okay, remember this threshold, 2 consecutive years. Ground consists of what? Soil, rock, any included ice or organic material, most common in this region with high mountains and in Earth's higher latitudes. These are most common in these regions. Okay, North and South poles, we have them in North and South poles only, mostly. Vast amounts of organic matter, including remnants of dead plants, animals, microbes, accumulate and remain frozen underground. So these are the constituents. If it is asked in your examination about the constituents, you can remember them. Okay, when thawing, permafrost releases its long buried elements into the environment, which is dangerous because it could also have microorganisms which can cause disease if they are, they're out there without the permafrost to capture them. And also methane and greenhouse gases which are stored in the permafrost, if they are released, then that will also cause a problem. Now let's know more about the key points. Its organic gas is converted into greenhouse gas, carbon dioxide, and the extremely potent methane. So remember these, methane is a huge component along with carbon dioxide. And carbon dioxide is the most potential greenhouse gas. After that we have methane. Okay, its mercury can be toxic for humans and animals, and its 1,000-year-old viruses can have unknown or forgotten effects. If a new strain is introduced into our body won't be able to remember it, and then diseases can be fatal, like we saw the COVID-19. As per the President Byrne, the chances of an emerging new bacteria or viruses cannot be ignored with respect to permafrost thawing. It will affect countries where roads or buildings were constructed on permafrost, of course, and Trans-Siberian Railroad, Alaskan Railroad, and some Canadian Railroad, because these are the regions which are very close to the Arctic in the north and are most affected with permafrost thawing. These are the regions that will be impacted the most. Thawing of permafrost will worsen effects of the climate crisis, of course, because whatever has been stored into the permafrost will be released again. That will create a vicious cycle of more release and more havoc to the entire globe. Flex fuel vehicle, let's know about them. What is flex fuel? Government, first of all, let's know the news. Government is enabling the use of various alternate fuels into an effort to shift from the fossil fuels, because we need to make sure that we do not store all our eggs in one basket. That is why this concept is there. Government has advised the automobile manufacturers in India to start manufacturing the flex fuel strong hybrid electric vehicles complying with BS6 norms. So remember that BS6 norms are going to be there with flex fuel for now. This is in line with government's policy on promoting ethanol as a transport fuel, which know a bit about ethanol as well. This is your homework. Currently, Brazil and the US are the two major countries where ethanol blended petrol is used massively. Okay, so which two countries we have to know about? The ethanol blending of petrol which is done massively, we have two countries, Brazil and the US. Okay, moving on, talking about another things, flex fuel technology. It was created only in the year 1980s. So remember that as well. It can be asked if it was in 2000 or 2010. After 2010, flex fuel strong hybrid electric vehicle, it can facilitate both fuels and electricity options in a vehicle. So that is why it is known as flex. That means we can switch. It can be either based on fossil fuel, the operation, or the electricity. Flex fuel vehicles capable to run on a combination of 100% petrol or 100% bioethanol and their blend. So this is also one of our options. Using ethanol as a vehicle fuel has measurable greenhouse gas emission benefits. First, this move will drastically reduce greenhouse gas emission from vehicles, because transportation is one of the sectors which consumes a lot of energy with respect to fossil fuels, and then greenhouse gas emission is a lot from transportation sector. So first that. Aid India to comply with its commitment made at COP26 which happened in Glasgow, UK, to reduce the total projected carbon emission by 1 billion tons. This is one of our commitments by 2030. Remember this commitment. Okay, take a screenshot. It will substitute India's import of petroleum as a fuel and provide direct benefits to our farmers. BS emission fuel norms, let's know about the sixth one. BS emission standards are instituted by the Central Pollution Control Board. It can be asked in your examination. Who formulates it? Central Pollution Control Board, which is under the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, regulates the output of air pollutants from the motor vehicles. And the next topic to understand over here is leaf coalition. We will try to cover more topics like this, because if I go very slow, you will not be able to revise it. This is the revision course, okay? Leaf coalition, let's know about them. LEAF means lowering emission by accelerating forest finance. Okay, coalition was announced at the Leaders Summit on Climate 2021. It is one of the largest ever public-private effort to protect the tropical forests which are under threat, specifically because between the tropics, most of the countries which are either developing or underdeveloped, they are trying to develop and at the cost of tropical forest. So that is the reason this happened. Goal is to halt deforestation by financing large-scale tropical forest protection. So deforestation shouldn't be done because they sequester a lot of carbon. They take care of our greenhouse gas emission. That is why we need to protect them. We need to keep our earth cooler, not warmer. Okay. Now, LEAF coalition, who is the collaborators for LEAF coalition? UK is there, Norway is there, and USA is there. Remember these three countries. So this is the responsibility. LEAF coalition is the responsibility of these three countries. It is supported by transnational corporations like Unilever, Amazon, Nestle, Airbnb, and it is result-based financing model. It will be used in the LEAF. Okay, which kind of financing? If result is positive, then financing will be done towards that particular project. Performance will be measured against the TREE standard. That means the RED plus environmental excellence standard. In 2020, the RED plus is with respect to deforestation only, remember that. So in 2021, the coalition mobilized 1 billion in financing, kicking off the largest ever public-private effort to protect tropical forests. So which coalition did so? LEAF coalition, remember that, which is a coalition of UK, US and the Norway. Okay. Then significance is, of course, this is a platform for private leadership. Private leadership because private engagement will be a lot. Amazon, Unilever, we saw that, Nestle, Airbnb. It will increase the carbon sink because, as I told you, forests, they absorb carbon dioxide and then release oxygen. So, and soils also do similarly as with respect to sequestering carbon dioxide. So, with respect to forestation, protecting the forest, we are protecting the soil as well. So, it will also increase carbon sink. It will help in achieving the nationally determined contribution under the Paris Agreement, which India is saying that we have to sequester 2.5 to 3 billion metric tons of carbon dioxide with the help of carbon sequestration. That is only possible in a massive scale with respect to proper forest cover. So, if not, that is not going to be there, then no problem. There will be a problem, not no problem. Achieve reducing emission from deforestation and forest degradation objectives. So, these are the main significance, remember them. This could be asked. Blue food, let's talk about blue food. Blue food, a report which is titled Environmental Performance of Blue Food, has stated that aquatic or blue foods can be made more environmentally sustainable than they are now because we have to take care of the aquatic environment as well. Ocean provides a lot of opportunities with respect to employment, carbon sequestration, keeping the ecology intact, keeping our food system and digestive system intact. That is why we need to protect them. So this was a report by the name of Environmental Performance of Blue Foods. It was published as a part of Blue Food Assessment. This is easy to remember. It's a collaboration between whom? Sweden-based Stockholm Resilience Center, remember this very well. United States-based Stanford University and non-profit EAT Foundation. These are the certain things that we read and forget. But these are the certain things if we tend to forget, this will cost us a lot. But we definitely have these moments when we go through a question, we are like, yes, I have read this, but I have not remembered this. So this is one thing that I told you. Food, about blue food, which is delivered, food which is delivered from aquatic animals. Like we have blue economy, blue, the color of the ocean. So food delivered or derived from aquatic animals, plants or algae, which are of course plants, we are talking from the perspective of those which are in the ocean and the blue economy, caught or cultivated in freshwater and marine environments. Both in freshwater and in marine environment, these are blue foods. These are found to rank high than terrestrial animal source food in terms of nutritional benefits and potential for sustainability gains. So if it is asked in the prelims that terrestrial based food is much more nutrition than blue food, this will be false. Okay, moving on. Rich in nutrients like what? Omega-3 fatty acid, which we get from cod liver oil, and vitamins and minerals as well. It generates the fewest greenhouse gas and nutrient emission. So this is something that we need to understand, because for nutrients, if we get our nutrients from dairy products, that is livestock rearing. Livestock rearing raises the methane levels into the atmosphere, which is not true with respect to blue food. Okay, fulfillment of many sustainable development goals like sustainable development goals number 2, nutrition, and 14, that is sustainable use of marine resources, life under ocean. Okay, now next is climate vulnerability index, very important. Mapping India's climate vulnerability, a district level assessment report has been released. It's the first of its kind, so it has a lot of probability to come into your prelims examination because this is the first ever. Okay, and this is released by whom? The Council on Energy, Environment and Water. Remember this. It could be asked, it was released by Niti Aayog or Ministry of Environment or some other NGO, WWF, but no, CEEW. It's a not-for-profit policy research institute. Now it could be asked like, it works under the aegis of Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. No, it's a non-profit, not-for-profit policy institute. Key points are there, very important. 27 Indian states and union territories are vulnerable to extreme climate events. Specifically, if we talk about the states of Assam, Andhra Pradesh, Maharashtra, Karnataka, Bihar, these are the most vulnerable. This can be definitely a good question. Remember their names, please. These events often disrupt the local economy because local economy is dependent on their coastal environment. They are dependent for their employment benefits from fishing, fish harvesting, many other things which are allied from the agriculture and allied activities that are related to blue economy, right? Unsustainable landscape, lack of infrastructure planning, and human-induced microclimate change are the key drivers of its high vulnerability. So these are the many things that are a reason of vulnerability. This could be asked in your prelims examination. They could omit one thing and talk about the rest, and you will be asked only unsustainable landscape and human-induced microclimate change are the key drivers. No, there is a word only. Whenever there is only, we have to be careful if we are missing some other factors. Lack of infrastructure is also one of them. Okay, landscape disruptions such as the disappearance of forest cover, over construction led to degradation of natural ecosystem. More than 80% of Indians live in the districts which are vulnerable to climate risk. More than 80%. Remember this thing as number as well. Northeastern states more vulnerable to floods because there are many rivers which are flowing into the northeastern, such as Brahmaputra is there. We have Ganga is Ganges river. We have, it's also called Ganga in Hindi, and in English it's Ganges. Please don't get mad if somebody says don't call it Ganges. So Ganges or Ganga, we have Brahmaputra river, we have Gandak. So many rivers are there which are prone to flooding. Okay, and that is why northeastern states are more prone to flooding. South and central are the most vulnerable to extreme droughts. So region wise, what challenge they might potentially face, remember those as well. South and central are most vulnerable to extreme drought. Why? Because south or southern countries, states, not countries, they face a huge challenge with respect to monsoon. Their rivers are not perennial. They are very much dependent on their own system of irrigation. So remember that is the reason why South and Central are the most vulnerable to drought. Then you see the climate vulnerability index, the southern zone is the most vulnerable to all three hydromet disasters: flood, drought and cyclone. So you can take a screenshot. Let's talk about the Great Green Wall. The Great Green Wall moving across these many countries. Remember the countries. It can be asked in your examination, what are the countries of the Great Green Wall? Take out your phones, or if you are watching it on your phone, pause this video, go and watch first of all how many countries, go and look at the potential authentic site, which countries are covered under Great Green Wall. Okay, moving on. United Nations Food and Agriculture Organization has published a report on Africa's Great Green Wall. Remember the institute that has published the report. Okay, Africa's Great Green Wall program has an important contribution towards combating climate change. Why? Because this Great Green Wall wants to limit the proliferation of Sahara Desert to the southern region because it is getting bigger and bigger. Program can easily accomplish 15 out of 17 targets of sustainable development goals. First of all, the problem is lack of funds. Nobody wants to invest there. Investment of $44 billion need to fund all purposes of land restoration activities, and it aims to restore what? 100 million hectares of degraded land in Africa. 100 million hectares of land, important fact, by 2030, another important fact to be remembered, but only 4 million hectares has been restored Very important. If it is asked in your prelims examination, you have to remember how much has been restored, how much is the goal, and what is the year. Okay. Great Green Wall was launched only in the year 2007 by whom? African Union. Remember this very well. And it was to combat desertification, land degradation, and drought in the Sahel region of Africa. Program started under the United Nations Convention to combat desertification. Very important fact. We can't choose one which is going to be asked. Very important facts. Learn those. It stretches from Senegal to Djibouti, and it has 11 countries selected as intervention zone for the Great Green Wall. I hope you went to watch how many countries are there, because this is the revision now. Burkina Faso, Chad, Djibouti, Eritrea, Ethiopia, Mali, Mauritania, Niger, Nigeria, Senegal, and Sudan. Okay, I hope you have revised now. Let's move on and talk about the next one. Biological Diversity Amendment Bill is our next topic of 2021. Let's see what do we have to remember here. Now, this bill has been tabled in the Parliament to seek certain relaxation to the rules in which Act? Biological Diversity Act of 2002. So, in order to seek certain relaxation under this act, this bill was tabled, and you see it is introduced to simplify, streamline, and reduce compliance burden, to encourage collaborative and research investment, widen the scope of levying access and benefit sharing with local communities. So community centric it is. Let's know about the key features. Simplify patent application process first. Encourage farmers to increase cultivation of medicinal plants. Very important. Even if one key feature you do not pay attention to, it's gone. Exempt Ayush medicinal practitioner from giving prior information to state biodiversity boards for accessing biological resources. This is a very important fact, remember. It could be asked that it does not exempt Ayush practitioners to give a prior information, which is not true. It does. Amendments seek to decriminalize certain provision. Relaxation is there. So remember from that perspective only. Foreign investment in the chain of biological resources are allowed. Then allow for foreign investment in research in biodiversity. Streamline process of patenting for Indian researchers to encourage patenting. Okay, so very importantly, remember those. Great Barrier Reef and coral bleaching. Coral bleaching happens when the corals are under unfavorable water temperature conditions, and their zooxanthellae, which is an algae that leaves the corals, and that causes discoloration, and now corals do not get any nutrients. That was all about bleaching. IPCC report, Great Barrier Reef is in crisis. Who has taken out this report? IPCC. And suffering grave impacts from climate change. It mentions 3 previous mass bleaching events which happened from 2016 to 2020. Okay, and severe coral bleaching is caused by warming ocean temperatures, but now even cooling of water also is happening, and that is also causing bleaching. It is the world's largest and longest coral reef complex, the Great Barrier Reef. It is the world's largest collection of coral reef. 400 types of coral having 1500 species of fish, 4000 types of mollusk, located off where? Queensland coast. One of the world's 7 natural wonders. Remember that, natural wonders, Great Barrier Reef, and it was inscribed in the World Heritage only in the year 1981. So we woke up pretty late. Now let's talk about green hydrogen. Green hydrogen, with respect to it, Indian Oil Corporation, Larsen and Toubro, and Renew Power signed a binding term sheet to set up a joint venture company to develop green hydrogen sector in India. It aims to supply green hydrogen at an industrial scale. That means at a scale where proper functioning of the use of industries can happen on green hydrogen. Industrial scale means large scale. Focus on developing green hydrogen projects in a time-based manner. What is green hydrogen? There are different types of hydrogen: grey hydrogen, blue hydrogen, green hydrogen, even yellow hydrogen is also there. Remember the different types of hydrogen. Just go to Google, type the different types of hydrogen, choose an authentic site, go through it. Okay, it can be asked in your prelims examination. Now let's talk about green hydrogen. It is produced by electrolysis of water. Now that is, the electricity is provided with the help of renewable energy like solar or wind. That is why it is green, because it is not, electricity is not being generated through coal and any other source. Electricity splits the water into hydrogen and oxygen, and byproducts is only water and water vapor, which is very climate friendly. Lower carbon footprint is one of its quality. Other types are brown, grey, blue. Okay, these are the other types. But there is also yellow hydrogen, violet hydrogen, indigo hydrogen, many types. Go and do have a look with respect to these types of hydrogen. Okay, brown hydrogen are produced using coal, where the emission is released in the air and most environmentally damaging. We also have gray hydrogen, which is produced from natural gas, where emissions are released in the air. You can match the following: blue hydrogen. What is the process of blue hydrogen? Gray hydrogen, green hydrogen. You can be asked in a prelims examination to match them. Then blue hydrogen is, sorry, I did not complete my green hydrogen one, right? Gray hydrogen produced from natural gas where emissions are released in the air. Blue hydrogen is produced from natural gas again, gray and blue both. Now here what happens, gray hydrogen emissions are left out in the atmosphere, but with respect to blue hydrogen, the emissions are captured using carbon capture and storage so that we can use it someday else. Let's move on and talk about the policy for green hydrogen. In February 2022, the Ministry of Power announced a grey hydrogen policy. It fits in well with the climate action thrust of India's budget for 2022-23. Target of 5 million tons per annum of grey hydrogen and production by 2030. These are the key factors to remember. Remember them, please. I cannot tell you which one could be asked because it's UPSC after all. That is why we are covering everything. Proposal to introduce a rupees 15,000 crore production linked incentive scheme for electrolysis as well. Nearly all of the hydrogen currently produced in India is grey hydrogen. This is an important fact. Remember, it could be replaced with brown hydrogen, but the biggest one is grey hydrogen. Okay, more than 80% of the current hydrogen demand in the country is there, and the government is aiming to use green hydrogen as a substitute for grey hydrogen. Okay, now let's talk about smuggled baby kangaroo, which we saw. A baby kangaroo was found dead and 3 others rescued in West Bengal, far from their natural habitat in Australia, because kangaroos are endemic to the Australian region. Okay, and New Guinea. The kangaroos were smuggled to Nepal. Northern part of West Bengal shares borders with Bhutan, Bangladesh and Nepal. So that is becoming a problem with respect to India. Due to geographical location, smuggling of animals and birds from Myanmar and other countries is very easy. So Wildlife Protection Act of 1972 was enacted for the protection of plant and animal species both. It includes only native species, and kangaroo is not a native species, so it doesn't apply. Kangaroo is originally from the continent of Australia. They fall into the category of marsupials, important fact, which are a type of mammal. So it could be asked, kangaroos are some other species can be mentioned, but marsupials, which is a type of mammal. In India, if a person keeps such creatures, it is necessary to give information to whom? Through the environment portal Parivesh. Parivesh is an environment portal which works under the Ministry of Environment. Kangaroo is included in the Convention on International Trades in Endangered Species of Wildlife, Wild Fauna and Flora. And these are least concern. They are categorized from least concern to critically endangered in the IUCN Red List depending. Okay, so these are the certain things that we had to cover. That's it for today. We shall bring more episodes. Thank you so much for watching.